My husband Mateo is mute. On our wedding day, his best friend Catalina swore the wedding vows on his behalf. After we got married, his mother called me sterile and useless as a wife, while he, his face flushed with shame, couldn't utter a single word to defend me. When Catalina pushed me down the stairs, I rolled all the way down. I remember the hot blood in my head and the certainty that I was losing our baby. Mateo only made hoarse, desperate sounds, absolutely unable to help me. Everyone kept repeating the same thing. Be patient, Lucia. It's very hard for him too. He's mute. I believed them until that company gala. I left early and found him on the stairs, pushing aside several drunks who were harassing Catalina. For the first time I heard his clear, deep, perfect voice. Let her go right now or I will personally make sure that no one sees you in this city again. Catalina looked at him in rapture and sighed. Mateo, how brave you've been. Then he turned his head. She saw me there, pale, and in a second she lost her voice again. I understood that that voice only existed for her, never for me. His wife froze, her eyes full of panic, as if her mask had been torn off in front of everyone. Catalina paled for a moment, but quickly recovered. She came over and took my hand. Lucia, don't get me wrong. Mateo was just very nervous about me, that's all. He was lying, trembling, pretending to be fragile. You know how he is. He would do anything for me. I jerked his hand away and looked at Mateo. He looked down at the floor, unable to meet my gaze. A stifled groan escaped his throat as his hands waved in frantic gestures. Catalina insisted. Let me explain, please. I looked at those long fingers that on the day of the abortion had clung to the bar of my bed as if he too were suffering. Now that image seemed like a cruel mockery to me. I let out a dry laugh. I turned and left. He tried to follow me. I pulled away as if his touch burned. Don't touch me, I said with a coldness that even I didn't recognize. He stood rooted to the spot, his panic turning to pure desperation. When I got home, I locked myself in the bedroom. I used to like the silence of that house. Now it suffocated me. Everything smelled like deception. After a while, someone scratched at the door. It was Mateo. Once, twice, our secret signal of urgency or pleading. I ignored him. Half an hour later, he stopped scratching. I thought he had given up and felt a strange relief. Then my phone vibrated. Catalina called. I didn't answer. Dozens of messages arrived. Lucia. Mateo left very upset. I'm afraid he'll do something crazy. He loves you madly. Please don't be mad because of me. My cat is sick and I'm alone. Do you know where the last one is? It was a tearful voice note that I didn't even open. I left the room. The living room was empty. His coat and car keys were gone. On the table, an open block, with nervous scribbles and a hastily written sentence. Lucia, believe me, I only love you. It made me nauseous. That was love. Running off to another woman as soon as his lie was exposed. I called the private investigator. I need everything on Mateo Vargas and Catalina Beltran from the day they met until today. The next day I went to work as if nothing had happened. Mateo didn't show up at home, but his mother called at the usual time. What have you done to him now to make him feel like this? He suffers enough being mute. Catalina says you've gone crazy. He's at his apartment. Go get him right now. I hung up on him. That afternoon Mateo showed up exhausted. He came in followed by Catalina, who was carrying a topper of homemade soup. Mateo was really worried because you hadn't eaten, so he asked me to bring it to you, she said with her angelic smile, as if the thing on the stairs had been a dream. My mother-in-law came in, took Catalina's hand and stared at me. Look how thoughtful she is and look at you. You who don't even know how to take care of your husband. Without Catalina, who knows where I would have slept last night. Mateo stood there, head down, wringing his hands. The very picture of guilt. I looked at the three of them and felt my heart turn to ice. I went to the table, picked up a document, and handed it to Mateo. Sign. His mother snatched it from me. Sign. What urgent business matters? I lied. Catalina, worried. Mateo, don't do anything without thinking. Lucia is just angry. She tried to grab his hand. He pulled away abruptly and looked at me pleadingly. I ignored his eyes and his mother. It's not a divorce. Calm down. Just work issues. She snorted, but fell. To calm Catalina down, Mateo took the pen and signed quickly in impeccable handwriting. He looked at me hopefully. Lucia, please don't be angry. Okay. I didn't answer. Then Catalina pointed to my wrist. What a beautiful bracelet, Lucia. Did he give it to you, Mateo? It was my engagement gift. I had never taken it off. I waited. Mateo tensed up and started making quick signs. It was my engagement gift to Lucia. Catalina feigned surprise. Oh, how pretty. She looked at Mateo with pure desire. You've never given me anything like this. Why not? He hesitated. He looked at her for a second, then at me and wrote on the blog, Lucia, what if you lend it to Catalina for a few days? She has an important party next week. My heart didn't break, It shattered. I stared at the phrase for 10 seconds straight, then smiled. I took off the bracelet and smashed it against the marble floor. Crash! The emerald shattered into 1,000 pieces. My mother-in-law screamed. Catalina hid behind Mateo. He stood up, speechless with horror. Now it's broken, I said very calmly. That way no one will have it. I went upstairs to pack my suitcase. Mateo kept making signs to me like crazy. What's wrong with you? I'll buy you another one. I ignored him. He grabbed my wrist tightly. Don't go. I jerked away. It's over, Mateo. I put my suitcase down as his mother shouted insults at me. He stood in front of the front door, eyes red, gesturing non-stop. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please don't leave me. I looked at him and saw only pity. Your remorse could bring my son back to me. He recoiled as if I had slapped him. I opened the door and went out. Something broke behind me, followed by his mother's screams. I didn't look back. Days later, the investigator handed me a huge dossier and several recordings. Mateo was not born mute. At age 10, a high fever damaged his vocal cords and he spent a year without speaking. During that time he received constant care, especially from Catalina. When he recovered his voice, he decided never to use it again. Being mute gave him more advantages than speaking. Catalina became the custodian of his great secret. 20 years of a toxic and twisted relationship. In a recording, she was heard bragging. Mateo isn't really mute. He just doesn't waste his time talking to people he doesn't care about. Lucia was just a conduit for his family's contacts. Why else would he marry her? And honestly, it's better if the child hadn't been born. I was getting tired of seeing her around. My nails dug hard into the flesh of my palm. I thought the fury would make me tremble uncontrollably, but instead I was overcome by an icy and absolute serenity. The next day, Catalina called me between grumps because she had smashed my mother-in-law's face and now she was being thrown out of the house. Lucia, could you talk to Mateo for me, please? He'll listen to you. I let out a soft laugh, humorless. He's not at home right now. You talk to him or you can't anymore. More exaggerated and loud crying. He doesn't want to see me. He's not answering my calls. I don't know what else to do. Then get on your knees and beg her. I answered her with a coldness that surprised even me. Exactly as I begged her to save me when I fell down the stairs the day I lost our son. She was speechless and I hung up. A few minutes later the doorbell rang. It was Mateo, dark-circled, holding a pastry box in his hand. He tried to smile hopefully and gestured to me. Lucia, I brought you your favorite cake, the one you like so much. I didn't let him in. What do you want? Quote. He started and waved his hands hurriedly. Catalina didn't mean it. She's young, immature. Don't hold it against her, please. I'll talk to my mother. Don't worry, Mateo, I said. Did you come to bring me a cake or to defend your lover? Her face lost all color. Her hands froze in the air. I slammed the door shut. That same night, an unknown number sent me a photo. The box where I kept everything for the baby, thrown next to a dumpster, dirty, destroyed. Below it, a short, cruel sentence. What bothers me goes straight to the trash. Blood pounded in my ears. I drove to the house we still legally shared. The storage room was ransacked, my son's mementos trampled, broken, desecrated. The wooden rocking horse I'd carved myself was broken in two. I fell to my knees on the frozen ground, picking up pieces between angry tears. Just then they arrived. Catalina let out a theatrical scream. My God, what happened here? When I left, everything was perfect. Mateo ran toward me. Lucia, don't be like that. If they broke, we'll buy new ones. It's not that bad. We'll buy new ones. I repeated, feeling hatred burning inside me. Shut up. He stepped back. Catalina stepped forward and stood in front of him. Lucia, don't blame Mateo. It must have been some thief. I threw the broken hobby horse at his face. You did this, Catalina. I'm going to kill you. The wood grazed her cheek and left a thin line of blood. She screamed and hid behind Mateo. Mateo, I'm scared. She's going crazy. And he instinctively put his arms around her to protect her. Then he turned to me with hard, reproachful eyes and spoke. That voice he never used to say his wedding vows, that he never used to defend me from his mother's insults, that he never used to ask for help when I was bleeding to death on a stretcher, but now, for a minor scratch on another woman's face, he did speak. 20 years of silence sharp as a razor that stabbed me straight in the chest. Apologize to Catalina right now. The word now sounded like a whiplash. No one moved. Catalina clung to his shirt, nails digging into his arm, eyes shining with fake tears. The red mark on his cheek looked like a victim's medal. I remained on my knees, surrounded by pieces of my dead son. My husband looked at me with a voice he had never had for me. Something inside me broke completely, but this time forever. I stood up slowly. My legs were shaking, but they were mine. The broken rocking horse remained on the floor. I pushed it with the tip of my shoe. No, I said firmly. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Mateo looked at me as if I had spoken in another language. He opened his mouth and for the first time in years he truly hesitated. Lucia stammered, and my name in her voice sounded foreign. as if a stranger were trying on my underwear. You hurt her, I laughed. It was an ugly, hoarse laugh that came from a place I thought was dead. Do you want me to apologize? I asked, to the woman who pushed me down the stairs, the one who threw my baby's things at her. Her face turned to ashen. Catalina tried to speak, but I cut her off. Shut up! And the snap of his mouth closing was the closest thing to justice I'd ever felt. I'm not going to apologize. I continued to stare at him, neither with her nor with you behind him. Catalina was calculating. She emerged from her hiding place with the face of a wounded lamb. Lucia, please, she whispered in a trembling voice. I know you're hurt, but Mateo just wants peace. Do you know how fragile he is? How much he's suffered? Fragile, I repeated with a sly tone. 20 years of lying and deceiving. Now it's called fragility. Then the mother-in-law showed up. Of course, she had to show up. Enough, she shouted. You've lost your mind. First you break the bracelet that my son saved up for months to buy you. Then you attack Catalina and now you slander Mateo. You should be grateful that someone has taken pity on a barren woman like you. The old reflex of shrinking and begging for forgiveness tightened my chest. I ignored it. Get out of my house, I said with icy calm. All three of you now. His eyes almost popped out of his head. What did you say? Did you hear me perfectly? Mateo raised his hands, in those gestures that no longer meant anything. Lucia, let's talk. We can fix it. But his voice had already given him away forever. His mother snorted. Fine. Let's go. But don't think you can throw my son out and keep the last name Vargas. You'll be back crawling before the end of the month. If I ever crawl again, I replied, it will be over your son's dead body. I didn't mean it figuratively and I didn't retract it. They left amid slamming doors and indignation. The silence that remained was different. It was no longer resignation. It was the emptiness after an explosion. I was left alone amid torn blankets and stained stuffed animals. Taking a deep breath, my cell phone vibrated. Message from an unknown number. Your report is ready. Tomorrow at 9, I replied. I'll be there. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the kitchen with cold tea and the document Mateo had signed without reading, confident that I was still the silent, foolish wife. My lawyer had called it a masterpiece of cold revenge. To me it was just paper that transferred his voting rights in the company to my name for the duration of his medical crisis, certified by the psychiatrist I myself had forced him to see 6 months earlier. The same one who diagnosed that his mutism was functional and completely voluntary. You always like to pretend you couldn't speak, I whispered to the empty house. Let's see what you think when it costs you everything. The next morning I sat across from the investigator. He slid a thick folder. Mrs. Vargas, here's everything. Schedules, bank statements, photos, and the recordings you requested. Catalina's name popped up in hotel reservations prior to our wedding, in transfers from Mateo's account, in photos of him laughing out loud with his mouth open. One was from the week I lost the baby and was hospitalized bleeding. He visited me for 10 minutes, mute and nervous, promising to return. He never returned. And the recordings? I asked. He passed me a pen drive, Catalina with friends, with her mother-in-law, and one of Mateo talking to her in front of me. A clinic 2 months before your abortion was not discreet. I felt the blow, but it didn't hurt like it used to. Thank you. I paid and left. At home, I showered. I put on a simple black dress, low heels, a braid, and discreet earrings. For the first time in months, I didn't wear the emerald bracelet. It was where it belonged, in pieces, like everything else I was never going to accept again. Pieces. Then I picked up my cell phone and dialed the company's legal department. Good morning, I said. This is Lucia Vargas. I'm activating the emergency clause in the power of attorney that Mateo signed the previous week. I'm calling the board of directors to meet immediately. On the other end, there was stunned silence. May I know the agenda? They asked. Sure, I replied. The only item is the removal of Mateo Vargas as interim CEO for medical and ethical reasons. Of course. The words sounded strange coming from my own lips. The lawyer cleared his throat and replied, understood. Quote, send the notices to all members right away. That night the boardroom was packed with heavyweights. I took my place as chairman. Mateo entered escorted by his mother and Catalina. Only his eyes betrayed him. His mother approached my chair. Lucia whispered venomously to me, whatever you're up to, you're not going to embarrass my son in front of his own board. If it's because of the whim of the bracelet, we'll talk about it later. Mrs. Vargas, I said calmly, I'm no longer your daughter-in-law since the day before yesterday. Address me as Mrs. Liu. She blinked in bewilderment. What are you talking about in front of everyone? I pushed a sealed envelope across the table. Final divorce decree. Mateo signed the agreement 3 weeks ago. It was attached to the corporate document that he, so busy, didn't bother to read carefully. You deceived him, his mother said furiously. You deceived my son. You're a viper. Keep going. The law to the letter, I replied firmly. If he signs papers without reading them, that's not incompetence, it's pure arrogance. Mrs. Liu, an advisor intervened. Maybe we should get started. The markets hate this kind of uncertainty. You're right, I said. Let's get started. Mateo took a seat. His hands flew in rapid gestures. This is illegal. It's an ambush. You can't do this to me. First point. I announced Mateo's current suitability to lead the company. I left the player in the center of the table. Before we vote, I want you to listen to something that will interest you. I pressed play. Catalina's voice filled the room. Mateo isn't really mute. He only bothers to talk to those he cares about. Lucia is nothing more than an instrument. She's worthless. The words hung in the air, disgusting. I pressed the second recording. Mateo's voice sounded clear and confident. You worry too much. He was laughing. They swallow everything. Investors, the board, even my mother. They don't expect me to speak at meetings. That way I can hear all their letters first. I have the power without the burden. Why would I give up something so useful? A director cursed under his breath. If it's not authentic, we have a serious problem. Very serious. I finished. Mateo stood up abruptly. He pounded the table in rage. Enough, he shouted at the top of his voice. The echo reverberated. There was his real voice. You set me up perfectly. I presented the truth. I said, what you do with her is entirely your decision. Catalina whispered Liam. He swatted her away. From a corporate perspective, another executive said, this creates enormous liability. It's shareholder fraud. I didn't come to send Mateo to jail, I said quietly. If I wanted that, I'd be talking to reporters, not you. I came to protect my family's stake. I slipped another dossier. Here are the terms for my silence. Mateo is resigning now as CEO. He's on medical leave. He sells me enough shares at a fixed price to make up for the years my family supported his theater. In exchange, I do not file civil lawsuits for the damages he allowed, nor do I release these recordings. His mother screamed that I was a shameless blackmailer. A counselor cut her off cold. Her son exposed us all to colossal risk. Mrs. Loon offers us a dignified exit. I should thank her, Catalina begged. Mateo ordered her to be quiet. He said it quietly for the microphone, but loudly for me. Choose, Mateo. What if I reject your terms? He challenged. Then I go to the prosecutor's office, I replied, and report the assault that led to my abortion and Catalina's continued harassment. Then I take these recordings to every investor who was moved by your story of bravery. Quote, your blowouto, he said. Prove it, I replied. He broke first. They always do when they run out of script. The rest was a whirlwind of legal terms. The board unanimously accepted her resignation. Catalina stormed out. Her mother was petrified. You've been impeccable, the lawyer said as he escorted me to the elevator. If you ever return to the corporate world, I would love to work with you. Thank you, I replied, but I think I was done cleaning up other people's messes for a while. Outside, the sky was clear. The fresh air caressed my face and made me feel alive. My phone vibrated. Message from an unknown number. Transfer executed. The shares are now registered in your name. We're moving forward with the foundation paperwork we discussed. Yes, I wrote. Name him after the baby. Use my maiden name. No Vargas. The real revelation wasn't that Mateo had pretended to be mute, but that between his silence and his lies, I had finally learned to listen to myself. Weeks passed. Mateo left the big house. The divorce was barely a rumor in small circles. Catalina disappeared from all social media. I moved to a smaller apartment with huge windows. I bought furniture that I actually liked. I went back to therapy. The foundation's bylaws arrived. My shares would fund scholarships for children with long-term illnesses and aid for mothers who lost pregnancies without a support network. I went to the cemetery just once. I sat and cried for a son who only lived long enough to burn a giant crater in my chest. I'm sorry, I whispered. I couldn't protect you then, but now I protect what's left of us. I went back to college part-time. Trauma counseling. Months later, I ran into Mateo by chance. I was leaving a coffee shop near the hospital where I volunteered. Lucia murmured only my name. Quote, I'm in speech therapy for real, the specialist said hesitantly. He forbade me from signing for a while to reprogram my brain. It seems that when you fake something for so long, a part of you ends up believing it. It sounds harsh. I said it is. He swallowed. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted to thank you for not ruining the company or sending me to prison and for forcing me to look myself in the eye. There was a time when those words would have softened me. Now they were just traffic noise. I didn't do it for you, I said, or out of kindness. I did it because I chose not to spend my life orbiting your worst choices, Mateo. He nodded sadly. I know. He looked down at my wrists. You don't wear the emerald bracelet anymore. It's broken, I replied, and I chose to leave it broken like this, in pieces. I hope you find your peace. He said goodbye. I stared at him and felt nothing. No love, no hate. Just a hint of compassion for someone who spent most of his life pretending to be less than he was for fear of being seen for who he really was. I found it, I said. I dodged it and kept walking. I didn't look back. That night the director of the foundation forwarded me a message. A mother asked me to tell you this. Your story gave her the courage to leave a man who always told her to be quiet. I read the sentence 3 times. My ex-husband's voice had been the loudest thing in my life, even when he was silent. Now, as I closed my eyes in my new, silent apartment, the only thing that resonated was my own. Tomorrow I would have a new group of patients. The future no longer felt like a sentence. It felt like a door that I decided to open. And if they ever doubted me again, I knew exactly what to say. No, I am not a useless barren woman. I am not broken. Not anymore. Yeah,